This can enhance your life. A lot of people brought up in this country are not fond of spices. You know, to them ketchup is spicy. But I want to show you a different way of cooking and eating that can actually improve your health. For example, these are the most common spices. I will be adding a few more to the end of my lecture. The first spice I want to talk to you about is turmeric. People pronounce it different ways, turmeric, but it's, you know what I'm talking about. Turmeric is an antioxidant. Now you'll say, what is an antioxidant? If you cut an apple and put it on your kitchen table, after a few minutes it starts becoming brown, right? That's oxidation. For example, if you take some freshly purchased nails, steel nails, and throw them in the backyard, after a couple of weeks, you come back and look at it, they are rusted, right? That's oxidation. So in your body, similar changes are taking place inside every cell. That's, your cells are rusting, becoming rusty. Okay? The fancy term is oxidation. Now, how do you prevent the apple slices from turning brown? You know what you do, right? What do you do? Lemon juice. When you put lemon juice, it prevents it from becoming brown. So what does the lemon juice do? It's an antioxidant, prevents oxidation. In the same way, we have some chemicals that can actually prevent oxidation inside the body. The first one is turmeric. So now forget about the RX scale. RX scale is the government sponsored scale which measures the amount of antioxidant properties. Like certain foods have more antioxidant properties than others and so on. So the comparison scale is called RX scale. But we won't talk about it much except to mention that there is such a scale. For example, I mentioned this morning that blueberries are better than strawberries and blackberries are better than blueberries. So in the RX scale, they go higher and higher and higher. For example, water has 0 RX, right? Beer probably has 5. Now, I'm not recommending beer. I'm just telling you comparison. But then blueberries around, I don't know the exact number, but it was like 200. Okay? There's another fruit called amla fruit, which is about 800. Okay, so the more antioxidants you consume, the better off you're going to be. So, I need to do something here. Come a second. So, let me see if I can go forward. So, the turmeric root is a root. It looks just like ginger. The only difference is ginger is white in color when it's cut, whereas turmeric is yellow in color when it's cut. Now, it has been used in the Asian countries for over 5,000 years. For some strange reason, you know, we always think our grandfathers are dumb. We are smarter than our grandfathers, right? You know, our great-great-great-grandfathers and great-great-great-grandmothers were smarter than what we think they were. They always combined turmeric with a pinch of black pepper. When you add a black pepper, pinch of black pepper, you don't need much. It multiplies the benefit of turmeric 20 times. Suppose you took 1 teaspoon of turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, it is the same as having consumed 20 teaspoons of turmeric. It's how powerful it is. Now, what is the big deal? Well, it's a big deal because every third person I come across has arthritis, joint pains, aches and pains. I'm not boasting, I'm trying to make a point. I am much older than I look. I have no aches and pains. Why? I use turmeric in every dish I prepare. Everything I eat has turmeric in it. it is possible to incorporate turmeric in almost every food that you consume. It has anti-cancer properties. For example, let me finish up with the anti-inflammatory. We did some studies actually. They did a study in, I believe, Pennsylvania, the university there. They took patients and with arthritis, put them on 3 different regimens. One is standard arthritis medication. By the way, some of the newer arthritis medication can cost up to $20,000 a year. By the way, at $20,000 a year, I would think that it would have all kinds of, pleasant side effects and, roses and whatever. But no, it has black label warning. It can cause death. It can cause severe bone marrow suppression and all that, right? At $20,000. Now, the other group got turmeric alone. The turmeric group got just as well, improved just as much as the maple weight on a conventional medication. But guess what? No side effects. Number 3, they used a combination of the standard medication and turmeric. You know what they found? Those people had less side effects from the modern medication when they took turmeric with it. That's how powerful turmeric is. You can't overload on turmeric. The main component of turmeric is called curcumin. Now, if you buy curcumin in capsule form, you have to be careful because that's a very concentrated form of turmeric. And in patients who have kidney disease, it could cause problems. So I would recommend it. I think if I got one message across this morning to you is, don't take capsules or pills, take plants. Turn it back down, okay. Thank you. So I think what you need to do is, so it was better than, almost as good as conventional medication with very little cost, and yet it had very little side effects. And when you took it with conventional medication, it caused less side effects. So there is no reason why everybody should not be consuming turmeric. By the way, did you know they also have some beneficial effect on Alzheimer's? Okay. Now, it also has anti-cancer properties. It kills cancer cells. There was one fascinating study. They had 15 patients with colorectal cancer where all the conventional cancer treatment failed. So the doctor scratched their head and said, what are we going to do? Somebody said, let's try turmeric. What do you have to lose, right? They take turmeric on these patients, and 5 out of the 15 got better. Now you'll say, well, 5 out of 15, that's only 30%. Well, none of the conventional medication did any good. So if you can do 30% better than conventional medication with no side effect, you're doing good. Okay? So it can kill cancer cells almost everywhere in colon. For example, and applied it, it healed up completely. And they did the same thing on a vulva cancer, genital cancer, and they made an ointment out of turmeric, and it healed up. So now, will it heal every kind in every case? No. But if it healed 1 out of 2, that's still better than we have now. If it can heal 3 out of 4, we are doing great. So, and what's the downside? It's not very expensive. I also mentioned indicated that it's anti-dementia. Looks like it seems to Alzheimer's. It seems to help. Next slide, please. And I already talked about rheumatoid arthritis. That's the one I told you about. Now, it seems to also help with arsenic poison. The people who are accidentally, water has arsenic in it in the United States. How many of you knew that? Yeah, you should test your well water for arsenic. If you live on a farm, make sure you test your well water for arsenic. It is quite abundant in the nature. It is used in multiple industries. So if you have arsenic poison, the turmeric seems to help actually. I talked about colon cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer. Remember I told you ulcerating cancer that they were able to heal it with turmeric ointment. Now, okay, it won't go forward. I'm going to have to go there and get it going. I suppose I can talk. Let's go to the next one. I believe the next one is, I can talk about anything you want. Let's talk about ginger. Actually, black pepper. Black pepper, I told you, it enhances the effect of turmeric. But don't consume too much black pepper. It's not the best for you. But by the way, what happens if you don't have black pepper? Like suppose you're not able to tolerate black pepper. Can you do anything else that can potentiate the effect of turmeric? And that is bromelain. You know what bromelain is? That's an extraction from pineapple. It's a pineapple extract. Those you can take as a supplement if you want to boost the effect of turmeric. That's fine. You can also do something else. Pinch of mustard powder will also enhance the effect of turmeric. Okay? We talked about black pepper. Go ahead. I have microphones. Please wait for the microphone. I need a volunteer. A couple of volunteers, please. And would you know how to turn it on and turn it off. After they speak, you can turn it off. I'd like to have one more volunteer if I can. This is the switch. You can turn it off when nobody's talking. Yeah. All right. A couple of ladies had questions there. It's on. It's on. The light is on. It's on. No, it's on. Leave it on because they want to talk. Yes, go ahead.
How do you make a turmeric ointment?
Oh, you can mix it up with like Vaseline or some kind of a oil. You can mix it up. It becomes an ointment. Somebody else had a question? Okay. All right. So that's black pepper. Black pepper is useful for enhancing the effect of turmeric, but don't use a lot more black pepper on its own. Okay, cayenne pepper, fascinating. I know a lot of people don't like cayenne pepper. It's too hot, too spicy. Well, there are ways in which you can actually get the effect of cayenne pepper without biting into it. For example, you can actually buy cayenne capsules, powder in capsules. In fact, that's what they did in Japan. These people had stomach upset called dyspepsia. They gave them cayenne pepper in capsules because Japanese people don't like spicy food. Okay, they got better. The stomach dyspepsia got better when they consumed cayenne pepper. Now, cayenne pepper has, have you heard of the chemical called capsaicin? Capsaicin is derived from, it's actually the botanical name is capsicum. That's the pepper. So the extract of cayenne pepper is good for arthritis. You can apply it as an ointment. Helps. Now, there's another fascinating experiment I want to talk to you about. There is an entity called cluster headache. How many know about cluster headache? It is nicknamed suicide headache because the headache is so terrible. People actually hit their heads against the wall trying to stop the headache, and sometimes people commit suicide because you can't take it anymore. the cluster headache always occurs on one side, either on the right side or the left side. It doesn't happen on both sides. Again, I told you it's the worst form of headache. So in this study, what they did was they took volunteers who had cluster headache, but they knew what they were signing for. It's not like secret. In disclosure, told them exactly what they're going to be doing. So the first day, let's assume they had a headache on the right side, right? That's called the right side. So what they did was they cut a cayenne pepper, rubbed it in the left nostril. That means the opposite nostril. Okay? And said, what happens? Oh, it's hot, terrible, terrible. What's a grade? 10 out of 10, it's unbearable. Okay, all right. Next day, they did the same thing, right? And they said, how terrible? Oh, it's 9 out of 10. It kept on doing it every day for the next 2-3 weeks. And when they did that, after about 2-3 weeks, the pain, the burning sensation was not as bad. When they did it on the opposite side of the headache, nothing benefit happened for the headache. When they rubbed it on the same side of the headache dramatically decreased. Okay? The scientists explained it in the following way. What happens is there are nerve fibers that are going from that area to the brain, carrying the pain sensation, right? And the way they transfer that information is through a chemical called P substance. I guess this guy didn't have any imagination. Called the P substance. The P substance is the chemical that the nerves release to carry the signal to the brain that it's pain. What happened was after repeated application, the P factors were depleted. In other words, the nerves had to generate more P substance to transmit. They lost the ability to make any more P substance because it's completely dry, no more P substance. So they couldn't send any more pain signals to the brain. That's how it helped, okay? When they gave them a break of 3 weeks, nothing, no cayenne pepper to be rubbed into the nostril for 3 weeks, and they repeated it, the pain came back with a force 10 out of 10. That proved the point. That is, now they gave a rest period for 2-3 weeks. Now the nerve had enough time to generate more P substance to transmit pain. But nevertheless, it works. Now, remember, almost no medication works for cluster headache, but cayenne pepper did the trick. Okay? And I already talked about the dyspepsia. Now, next comes garlic. Now, garlic has antioxidant properties. It has anti-cancer properties. It has antiplatelet. That means it thins the blood out. This is why if you're taking garlic supplements and you're scheduled for surgery, stop it at least a week or 10 days before surgery. You tend to have a little bit more bleeding problem during surgery. In fact, many of the anesthetists know about this. They'll ask you specifically, hey, are you taking any supplements? If you're taking supplement, they'll tell you to stop it at least a week or 10 days before. It improves endothelial function. Endothelial function means it improves the ability of the blood vessels to produce nitric oxide. By the way, the gentleman that received the Nobel Prize for this, he actually discovered that the release of nitric oxide by the endothelial cells, the blood vessel cells, inner cells, they are the ones that produce nitric oxide that dilates the blood vessels. In fact, dilating the blood vessel is responsible for many beneficial functions, including erectile function. The reason why erection takes place is because the blood vessels, there are two kinds of blood vessels, arteries which bring blood to the organ, the veins remove the blood from the organ. Erection takes place when the blood vessels dilate, bring a lot of blood into the penile tissue, but the veins go into contraction, spasm, so the blood doesn't escape. That's how erection takes place. If you have inadequate blood flow, erection cannot take place. That is the most common reason why men have erectile dysfunction. Now, why am I going with this? There's a reason why I'm talking about this. We know, for example, all blood vessels are similar in function. The blood vessel in the penis is a small blood vessel. The blood vessel in the heart is a bigger blood vessel. So remember, the smaller blood vessels get plugged in before the big blood vessels get plugged in, because there's more space in the big blood vessel, right? So we know that people who have erectile dysfunction, men, within 5 years, they start having symptoms of heart disease. In fact, we know that men who have erectile dysfunction, if you put them on a treadmill, 9 out of the 10 people will have positive treadmill, abnormal test results. In other words, the erectile dysfunction is like a canary in a coal mine. One of my mentors who jokes and says, these guys who have had heart problem, their penis has been wanting for 5 years before the heart attack took place. They didn't pay attention. This is the reason. It's a vascular problem. And garlic will enhance endothelial function in a general way. I'm not talking about the erectile dysfunction. I'm talking about, I gave you the scientific explanation how the blood vessels dilate. Now, studies have shown that garlic can also help you with cold and flu. By the way, how do you use garlic? There's a special way you should use garlic. Remember, most of you were here for this morning session, right? Remember what I told you about broccoli? There are 2 chemicals that are in the separate cells, and when you crush them, they come together and create a new chemical. Similarly, it happens in garlic. There are 2 chemicals in 2 separate cells. They don't come together unless you crush a bite into the garlic. So what I would do is the same thing I recommend. Never chop the garlic and throw it in the oil first. Always chop up the garlic and leave it on the kitchen counter for 10-15 minutes. Then you can lightly roast it, and don't cook the garlic too much, and you'll still get the benefit of garlic. And people will say, well, you get the maximum benefit of garlic by eating raw garlic. Yes, it is. It is definitely true, but it's an antisocial behavior. Don't do it. Nobody can sit next to you. And a lot of people think that, it only comes out of my mouth. No, it comes out of your pores. It comes out in your sweat. The nasty smell of garlic will be in your sweat. But if you roast the garlic lightly, the smell is not so bad. And if you crush the garlic before you roast it, you get the benefit without the problem. Okay? Ginger. It is one of my favorite spices. Why? It is what I call a dynamic spice. And you see, garlic, there are a lot of people who say, garlic is too pungent, I can't handle it. But there's hardly anybody who cannot handle ginger. I'll tell you the benefits of ginger. You see, we did a study. We took people who work in the X-ray department. They exposed themselves to some X radiation. And when we looked at the DNA, by the way, let me back up. All of us have DNA damage due to radiation. Do you know why? Sunlight. Sunlight contains radiation, and so it damages your DNA in each cell of the body. In a normal person running around in the nature, we found that the DNA damage is around 8%, 8 to 9%. Whereas people who do have jobs in high-risk occupation, who are they? X-ray department workers in the hospitals. Pilots. You know why pilots? Airline pilots. Because when you're flying about 35,000 feet above the sea level, there is very little cloud cover, and you get a lot more radiation, gamma radiation. And so they are more likely to develop DNA damage from gamma radiation. So also the stewardesses, the airline stewardesses, they are also, because they are flying so much. Like you may be taking a trip once or twice a year. They are flying almost every day. they're exposed to a lot more radiation. They found that when these X-ray workers drank ginger tea 3 times a week, the DNA damage dramatically lowered. Like during the exposure, their DNA damage went up to about 14%. When they drank ginger tea, it came down back to about 8%. So ginger is extremely useful. Second thing is, it is the most effective anti-nausea medication that we have. It is better than conventional medications, and it is non-toxic. It is safe for women, pregnant women as well. The only caution in pregnant women is don't consume more than 20 grams a day. That's a pretty good chunk. The reason why you should not take more than 20 grams a day if you're pregnant is because it will start contractions. They go into premature labor, so you don't want to do that. Other than that, it's quite safe. And for cancer patients who go through chemotherapy, it is useful. In fact, there is one situation where this is something, have you heard of anticipatory nausea? It's a very fascinating phenomenon. If a person is scheduled to have chemotherapy every Friday, okay, and they get nausea after the chemotherapy, right, Saturday and Sunday, they started giving them ginger. And what they did was, if they, even on a Thursday, they think they're going to get the chemotherapy Friday, they'll get nausea. It's called anticipated nausea. They gave them ginger that fixed it. It is absolutely miraculous. Another reason why women should be consuming, men and women should be doing it every day, but particularly women. Why? Studies have shown that it is effective for PMS, the premenstrual syndrome. It dramatically improves the PMS symptoms in women, menstruating women. In addition, it also reduces the menstrual blood loss by 50%. As you know, some women have extra bleeding, and that can lead to iron deficiency anemia. This reduces the blood loss by 50%. So the question is, why are we not feeding ginger to our female children? I already told you about the DNA protection. This is an example. This is called the COMET test. On the left side is a normal DNA. This is normal DNA. When the DNA gets damaged, it forms like a comet of tail because the DNA becomes unwound, spiral, unwound, and that's called the COMET test. And this one shows more of the COMET test. This is one way to find out how much DNA damage is there. This is how they detected that the DNA damage can be dramatically lowered by consumption of ginger. Ginger is also useful for osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. It is also used for migraine. And I told you PMS. So let me ask you a question. Why are you not consuming ginger every day? And it's not expensive. It's not like it's $10 a pound. Saffron. How many of you know anything about saffron? How many of you know about saffron? None? Wow. Okay. Saffron comes from a crocus plant. It's not all crocus plant. There's one crocus called the saffron crocus. And it's a female plant that yields this. And the female plant has these stencils. See these, the little things that stick out of the flower? Those are called stencils. And those are hand-picked and dried, and that is what saffron is. Okay? It is the most expensive spice in the world, but you don't need much. Couple of threads a day will do the trick. If your husband is crabby, feed him some saffron. If your wife is crabby, feed her some saffron, because it improves, it makes them happy, less crabby. Okay? It also seems to improve dementia, Alzheimer's. They fed people saffron, a small amount of saffron, as compared to the conventional medication, which costs quite a bit more. They were just as effective as the conventional medication for Alzheimer's. Now you'll say, well, it's expensive, but in the amount that I recommend to you, it costs only about 30 cents a day. All you need is 2-3 threads. How do you do it? What I do is I throw it into hot water, and the colors the hot water brilliant, light orange, pink orange color, and you can drink the water. Don't do what I did once. I was in a hurry. I didn't have any time to put it into hot water and drink it, so I just threw a couple of threads into my mouth. I had severe burns in my throat. It's a pretty strong spice, okay? So dilute it in water and use it. I put it in rice. When I make rice, it adds a nice golden yellow color to the rice and adds it has a very pleasant smell. I'll tell you one story about saffron. At the University of Florida, what they did was, remember I told you it helps with PMS symptoms? So what they did was, they took women with PMS, and they took the saffron, put it into water. I told you it gives you a golden yellow color. They kept on diluting it and diluting it and diluting it until the yellow color went away. It looked like plain water. Okay? And the researchers smelled it to see if you can smell saffron. They couldn't smell it. So it didn't have a smell. It didn't have any color. So it was so dilute. They had the women with PMS smell it. Just smell it. There was a dramatic improvement in the PMS symptoms. So how much does it take? Go ahead. Can you use the microphone, please?
So with some of these things like saffron here, do you have to take it daily to have it build up in the system, or can you take it one day and have it be effective that day?
Well, that's exactly when you take it, you have the effect for that day or the next day, then you have to take it again. Right. All right? So it is so effective in such small, the women couldn't even smell it. They gave them plain water and saffron water. They could tell the difference. When they smelled the saffron water, they got better. Microphone, please.
I've never heard of this. So do you drink a tea? Is it an herb? Do you eat it fresh, a supplement?
It looks like these spread threads, ma'am. Do not buy the powder, because it's so expensive, the powder could be easily adulterated. They could put another colored powder and say this is saffron, okay? A small bottle buy a small bottle. It cost me about $30 for a small bottle, and it contains enough saffron for like 3-4 months. So it's not that expensive considering so little of it you need.
So it's like a capsule in a bottle? Like it comes in a capsule?
No, it comes in a bottle. It's threads. You take a couple of threads and put it in your water.
I see. Okay.
Like it looks like this, this looks like little threads. This is that thing dried. By the way, the reason why it's expensive is the flower comes up in morning and dies in the evening. So they have to harvest those stencils that day, and it has to be hand-picked. You can't use a machine to harvest it. That is why it's expensive. About a pound is like, I don't know. I don't remember. It's expensive. It's very expensive. Anyway, so that's about saffron. Any other questions on saffron? Cardamom. How many of you know about cardamom? Any of you seen it? Okay, good. Cardamom pods are they look this green little pods, and it's used in Asian cooking. I make my saffron coconut rice. I put this in. And here's the interesting thing. It boosts your immune system dramatically. All you need is 1 or 2 of these per day to boost your immune system. Let me tell you a story about this. You see, there are different kinds of cells in the bloodstream. Basically, there are three kinds of cells. The clotting cells called platelets, then red cells which carry oxygen, and white cells which are responsible for immunity, fighting bacteria and getting rid of foreign agents, and including cancer cells as well. Now, among the immune cells, they call leukocytes or white cells. There are different kinds of white cells. There are some cells which have granules. You can see those granules here. By the way, the medical term for cell is cyte, S-C-Y-T-E, cyte. So granules means granules. So if you say granulocyte means those cells which contain granules. So these are granulocytes. These stained red with the red pigment. This stains blue, and this takes up both red and blue stain. So they're called neutrophils, basophils, and eosinophils. Eosinophils, actually, that red dye is acidic in nature. The blue dye is basic, like alkali in nature. Okay, so we can classify them as granulocytes, and these don't have any granules. These are not granules; they are vacuoles. They are holes. So these are called lymphocytes or monocytes. Now we are focusing on this cell called lymphocyte. There are three kinds of lymphocytes. There are B lymphocytes, which actually secrete chemicals that fight disease, called immunoglobulins. And then the other cells actually fight with, called physical attack. One set of cells called natural killer cells. They actually kill cells by physical action. They engulf the bacteria. Okay? Now, those are called natural killer cells. After consuming by the way, each of those killer cells can kill about 1 billion bacteria at one sitting. Okay? Then they go to kill the next batch and next batch. After consuming 1 or 2 pods of cardamom, those can kill twice as many of those bacteria. It's how powerful it is. And by the way, it is actually very pleasant to eat. You know what I do? I munch on them and I chew on them. Your breath has a beautiful, pleasant smell. Very pleasant smell. And the most important thing to remember is I just already told you B, T, and C. All I can tell you is that it doubles the killer activity of those immune cells. Fenugreek, I talked about it briefly. It actually comes from the Middle East, fenugreek. It actually is bitter in taste, but you don't need a lot. And I use it in cooking. And one of the things that you can do is to put it in water overnight, soak it, so you get a kind of a decoction out of it, and you can drink that stuff. We found that in some cases, it reduced the blood sugar dramatically in diabetics. We also did an experiment which showed that people who consume fenugreek on a regular basis were able to exercise much longer after a month of consuming fenugreek. It actually improves muscle strength. This is a 3-year randomized control study. Showed that they were able to do a lot better on the exercise. Also, here is another example of how it can kill cancer cells. Fenugreek can kill cancer cells. Question is, how come you're not using any fenugreek in your food? Cinnamon. You had a question.
Okay, so on the
Can you close?
fenugreek, let's say it was a heart patient, how would you know if it interferes with any of the medication that they're already on?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, now I haven't done a lot of research on it. To the best of my knowledge, in the amount that I recommend, it has not been shown to interfere with other medications. Unlike, for example, grapefruit juice, that is definitely a problem with medications. Now come to cinnamon. A lot of people don't know this. There are two kinds of cinnamon. How many of you knew that? None. There are two kinds of cinnamon. This is the most commonly found cinnamon. This is the actual better cinnamon. This is also known as the true cinnamon or Ceylon cinnamon. Ceylon is named after the country of Ceylon. Now it is renamed Sri Lanka. It's south of India, that little island. The true cinnamon is the actual cinnamon. The other cinnamon is actually cassia cinnamon, also known as the Chinese cinnamon. The problem with Chinese cinnamon is that it has a poison in it. It damages the liver, so you don't want to consume this. In fact, it's called coumarin. That's what it is. There's a chemical called coumarin. The problem with that coumarin is that it's toxic to the liver, but it is the one that lowers the blood sugar. A lot of people say you should eat cinnamon for lowering your blood sugar in diabetic. Don't do that, because this true cinnamon does not lower your blood sugar. It is the cassia cinnamon lowers the blood sugar, but that's the one that has the coumarin toxin in it. You don't want to do that. You won't drop dead, but it'll damage your liver. Cinnamon is antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-diabetic. I just talked about coumarin. So that's only for the cassia cinnamon. The true cinnamon doesn't do it, so don't use it for diabetes. It can be antimicrobial properties. It can kill cancer cells. It also seems to lower the cholesterol levels. And in some cases, they found that Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease may also improve with the consumption of cinnamon. Cloves. I'm sure all of you know about cloves, right? Clove is these are the dried unopened flower buds. And it's native to Indonesia and India, but it has antioxidant property, anti-inflammatory properties, because there's a chemical called eugenol. That's the one that's anti-inflammatory. It seems to fight free radicals because of antioxidant property. It improves digestive health. And interestingly enough, you chew on it, your mouth is better. By the way, this also improves the breath. Breath smells nice and fresh. However, it can also reduce plaque. It reduces gingivitis. And it has even been shown to lower blood sugar levels. Clove is quite nice, no problem. What about cumin? Everybody know about cumin? There are two kinds of cumin. White cumin, how many of you know the word AMP kinase? Let me explain that to you. Every cell has an enzyme inside that decides how fast the metabolism should go, whether it should go faster or slow. That enzyme is called AMP kinase, adenosine monophosphate kinase. Okay? That controls the speed of your metabolism. If you have more AMP kinase, the cell burns more calories. If you don't have enough AMP kinase activity, the cells burn less calories. White cumin will trigger the AMP kinase, so it burns more calories. So white cumin can help you lose weight. So also black cumin. Black cumin doesn't belong to the same family. However, it's called black cumin. It also does AMP kinase, and it improves weight loss. It lowers the blood pressure and lowers cholesterol. Okay? Now, by the way, just a side note, do you know of anything else that also activates AMP kinase? That's in the kitchen. You can take a tablespoon before each meal. Vinegar. Vinegar, 1 tablespoon before each meal, will also increase the AMP kinase. and helps you lose weight. Studies after studies have shown that when they consumed a tablespoon not alcohol, vinegar, and they ate a slice of bread, the blood sugar was lower. And in one study, a couple of studies done in Japan, they showed that they causes rapid weight loss. Caraway seeds. Remember the caraway seeds they use in bread? Minnesota rye bread with caraway seeds. I love it. It's good for you. Not the wheat, because it has no fiber, but the caraway seeds are good. It improves weight loss. It improves digestion. It is anti-inflammatory. By the way, don't consume it if you're pregnant. Avoid in pregnancy, lactation, and children. Now, here's the interesting thing. Caraway seeds have been used in traditional medicine for ages, 3,000-4,000 years. In India, they used to soak that in water, and they call it gripe water. They feed it to babies. They have stomach upset. So caraway seeds has been found to be very useful. Fennel seeds. You notice some of them look similar. The white cumin, caraway seeds, the fennel. But there's some, if you look carefully, there are some differences. It has a taste like licorice, and that is due to chemical anethol. It has anti-cancer properties. It also can improve weight loss, and very important, it improves milk production in pregnant women. By the way, I forgot to mention that. That's the same effect of fenugreek. Remember fenugreek I talked about a few minutes ago? Studies have shown that when you have a woman, particularly the first child, primipara, that is the woman for the first baby they've had, very often they have difficulty producing milk for the first time. If they consume fenugreek, it produces milk quickly. Rosemary is useful, is an antioxidant. Interestingly enough, what they did was, in one study, they crushed the rosemary and smelled it. The test performance improved dramatically. Test scores improved dramatically. If you want to cheat, that's a way to cheat. Smell some rosemary, and then you can perform better in your test. It also improves your mood. Oregano is an antioxidant. It improves digestive health. It's antibacterial and antiviral. So I would recommend you use that. Now, somebody asked me about chocolate this morning. Chocolate is nothing but cocoa powder plus sugar plus cream. Okay? What is the benefit of cocoa? Cocoa actually dilates the blood vessel dramatically. Okay? However, when you add sugar to it, it blocks some of the benefits of the cocoa. When you add milk to it or cream to it, it blocks it even further. I don't care how dark the chocolate color is, it's still not the best for you. Now, I agree, dark cocoa powder is better than the other one. By the way, if you buy chocolate, if you decide to eat chocolate, by the way, eating chocolate is not a sin. It's just not healthy. So if you choose to eat chocolate, make sure the cocoa was grown in Africa, not South America. The cocoa in South America is contaminated with lead and what's the other one? Cadmium. Cadmium and lead. So, and cadmium behaves just like calcium. It's picked up by the bones, but calcium cannot be replaced by cadmium. It replaces it because it looks like it. But cadmium cannot do the same thing that calcium does. It doesn't strengthen the bones. So it happens to make it worse. So that's the problem with cocoa. Now, if you really want to have the benefits of cocoa, eat the cocoa directly. Now you'll say, can't do it. You know why? It's very bitter. So there are some ways, I tell you how to cheat. what you do is add either erythritol sugar, sweetener, or allulose sugar, which are sweeteners, low-calorie sweeteners. You can use them. And then if you want to add some creaminess, you can add like oat milk, almond milk, something like that. You can make hot chocolate with that. Problem solved. You still get your so-called hot chocolate without the risk of adding sugar to your diet or adding fat to your diet. Teas. Which are the best teas? Hibiscus tea. How many of you know about hibiscus tea? Anybody know hibiscus tea? You know the plant hibiscus, that's a flowering plant in your garden, backyard? It's the same hibiscus flowers. They collect the petals and dry them, put in a tea bag. It is the healthiest tea in the world. It lowers the blood pressure naturally. And there are some precautions if you consume hibiscus tea. Make sure you rinse your mouth with water after you drink the hibiscus tea, or drink it through a straw, because it has a strong acid which can weaken your enamel in your teeth. So either drink it through a straw or rinse your mouth with water after you drink the hibiscus tea. You need to drink about 4 cups a day to lower your blood pressure. By the way, interesting historical fact. You see, about 40 years ago, the company Merck, pharmaceutical company, giant company, they spent millions of dollars developing a medication to lower the blood pressure called ACE inhibitor. Okay? It interferes with the chemicals that is in the bloodstream. It converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and that enzyme is produced in the lung called the converting enzyme. By blocking that enzyme, you can block the conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, which causes constriction of the blood vessels. So by blocking the conversion, they were able to lower the blood pressure. They spent, I don't know, $200-300 million to develop that, maybe half $500 million to develop the medication 40 years ago. And then, of course, a lot of other companies followed suit, preparing similar chemicals. There are about a dozen of them belong to the same family. 10 years ago, scientists were analyzing the extract, the petals from the hibiscus flower, and they found God put one of those chemicals in the petals of the hibiscus flower. Goes to show you, God has put everything you need in those plants. What the company spent $500 million trying to develop, similar chemical is in these petals. Now, here are some warnings. If you develop a dry cough, you have to quit it. It's not dangerous, but the dry cough will never go away unless you quit drinking hibiscus tea. Now, in terms of other teas, the white tea is the most beneficial. Next comes green tea, then comes black tea. Studies have shown that Japanese men and Chinese men very rarely have prostate cancer. When they looked back at it, they found that when they did autopsies on people who died from other diseases, they found that there was almost prostate cancer in everyone in Japan and China. But how come they didn't grow? They didn't grow big enough to hurt the patient. That's because they were drinking lots of green tea. Now, so some American scientists said, maybe you can try an experiment. They tried giving them a couple of cups of tea every day, green tea, and they did not benefit from that. I said, what's going on? Somebody said, hey, Chinese don't drink just 1 cup of tea a day or 2 cups of tea a day. They drink like 5 to 7 cups. When they did 5 to 7 cups, it seemed to actually help prevent cancer growth in prostate gland. Okay? All right. Spices to avoid. Avoid nutmeg. Nutmeg has a chemical that causes, you know where they put nutmeg, right? When they use, in a couple of months, they'll start putting nutmeg in stuff. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Christmas. Eggnog and stuff, right? Now, when you think they drank some eggnog and they're happy, it's not the eggnog. It's the nutmeg that makes you loopy. In fact, 2 teaspoons of nutmeg can kill you. Did you know that? 2 teaspoons of nutmeg can kill you. It can make you go into seizures and dementia. It's just crazy stuff. It causes hallucination. They go into bizarre dreams and visions. So you don't want to do that. So avoid nutmeg. Tarragon also seems to have a problem. It probably causes liver damage, so you don't want to use tarragon. Now, did I say that if you use a tiny sprig of tarragon in your dish, no, that's not going to be a problem. But if you're using lots of it every day, it's a problem. I would avoid nutmeg because nutmeg has no valuable beneficial effect. Now, I gave you all the references for the spices, the problem with these spices that you should avoid. How much of each? Let me read the warning first. More is not always beneficial. That means when it comes to spices, all you need is a tiny amount. You don't need a lot of spices to give you the benefit. Like I told you, 1 or 2 cardamom pods per day will do the trick. Don't, just because 1 cardamom pod is good, don't consume 20 cardamom pods every day. Because many of them have these chemicals which are very, very potent. In high quantities, they can be actually dangerous. But in small quantities, they're perfectly safe and they're beneficial. So fenugreek 1 teaspoon, turmeric 1 teaspoon, but turmeric can be used in more than 1 teaspoon if you have a major problem. Like if you have colon cancer, you can take, like in one study, they gave 13 teaspoons of turmeric with no side effects. Ginger, 1/8 of a teaspoon to a 1/4 teaspoon. Garlic as much as possible. Cayenne pepper as much as possible. Cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon. Cloves, 1 or 2 a day. Cardamom pods, 1 to 3 a day. Saffron, 1 to 2 threads. Cumin white, 1/8 of a teaspoon. Black cumin, 1/8 of a teaspoon. Caraway, 1/16 of a teaspoon. Fennel, 1/16 of a teaspoon. Again, more is not always better in terms of spices. Any questions? Conclusion, spices can be extremely useful, but more is not always better. But none of this will compensate for poor health habits. It's like somebody saying, you know what, doc, I eat pork chop, but I add some garlic and cinnamon and some cloves. That's not going to do it. It's like eating a healthy orange with a small amount of cyanide in it. That's not going to do it. Okay. Any questions? I talked about it this morning. Walk 4 miles a day, avoid all animal products, drink 3 to 4 quarts of water a day. 1 quart should be alkaline. Anybody know about alkaline water? Anybody else knows anything about alkaline water? 20 years ago, a friend of mine told me I should be drinking only alkaline water. I said, come on, I'm a medical doctor. What the heck are you trying to tell me? The alkaline water, when it reaches the stomach, which has got an acid with a low acidic pH, nothing's going to happen. And lo and behold, about 8-10 years ago, there were 2 studies that came out of Europe that showed that men who consumed 1 quart of alkaline water a day dropped the cholesterol by 10% in 6 weeks, and women who did the same thing dropped the cholesterol by 15% in 6 weeks. So I drink, in fact, the water I'm drinking right now, if I'm not mistaken, I think I have a bottle here somewhere, is alkaline. This is alkaline water. So that's all I drink now. I'm not recommending this particular brand. I'm just saying alkaline water. It so happened that this particular brand is the least expensive brand I found containing alkaline water. And 4 servings of dark greens every day, 4 servings of cooked beans or lentils every day, and then follow the 5-to-1 rule for carbohydrates. I talked about it this morning. Anybody who was not here this morning did not know about the 5-to-1 rule? Okay, ma'am, I don't want you to feel embarrassed. Just stand up for me. I will. Where is my can of beans? I had a can of beans here. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, could be on this side. Yep. Ma'am, would you, somebody, you can either, can you give her a microphone, please? She's got a microphone. Come up here, please.
Okay.
I won't embarrass you.
Okay.
You look at, don't look at the last line, don't look at the percentage. Look here and tell me, per serving, how many grams of total carbohydrates are there?
Per serving,
How many grams
see.
of total carbs?
18 grams.
18 grams. The next line, what does it say?
Dietary fiber, 4 grams.
4 grams.
And
Can you hold up your microphone?
Okay,
And so 4 goes to 18 how many times, ma'am?
into 18, 4 times 4,
Let's 5.
4, yeah.
4 something, right? So that ratio is 4 to 1 or 5 to 1. The ratio should be always 5 to 1 or less. Now look at this one. You're not done with your assignment yet.
Okay,
Do the same with this one. How many total carbs, total grams?
21 grams.
And can you hold microphone?
21 grams,
How many grams of fiber?
2 grams.
2 grams. What's the ratio?
So 10?
Yeah, 10 to 1.
Yeah,
That's how people gain weight.
okay.
Okay? Pasta, general pasta, the regular pasta has usually 16 to 1, 24 to 1. I saw a Japanese noodle that had 84 grams of carb per serving and 3 grams of fiber per serving. That means the ratio of carbohydrate to fiber is 27 to 1. That's the problem in this country. Carbs, don't blame the carbs. Everybody blames the carbs. Carbs without fiber. I challenge you to eat these beans on a daily basis and gain weight. Impossible. Impossible. Unless you pour about a gallon of oil on top of it. Okay? By the way, when I travel quite a bit. In fact, tomorrow I leave and I'll be gone the whole week. I'm going to 5 different hospitals to do surgery, heart procedures. And do you know what I do for lunch? Open one of these cans. And by the way, another thing I want you to do is, anybody else can volunteer. I want to show you something else. I want you to, on canned goods, you have to look at something else. Anybody volunteers? Bring your microphone with you. I have another lecture called How to Read Labels. I'm teaching you a little. Now, look at the calorie count in numbers per serving. Calorie count in just simple numbers.
The 110?
Okay, look at this sodium number.
120.
Okay, the sodium number should be about the same as the calorie number or lower. So here is pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Okay, most of the time you'll find like sodium content 240, 600, 800. You don't want that. Okay, so these are simple rules to follow. So you want the calorie count as the same as, or at least higher than the sodium number, and then you want the fiber content to be at least 20%, 5 to 1, and so what I do is I carry a mixture of my own. I mixed up the stuff, cumin, turmeric, black pepper. I mix it all up. I have a bottle of that mixture I carry with me. I euphemistically call it the Chelliah mixture. I take a tiny, half a teaspoon, put in a bowl, put this in there, and put it in the microwave oven for 3 minutes. My lunch is ready. Trust me, I can gain weight like that. It tastes awesome when you put all those, spices in there. Okay? So there is a way to eat better even when you're traveling. Okay? And I want to show you something else. I brought it for myself, but I guess I can show you what I have. This, I call it the Chelliah chips. If you want, you can certainly take a piece and taste it. A few years ago, I had a problem. You have a question?
We're just wondering how you get your greens in the
Okay.
day, if you're eating just the
Yeah,
beans.
yes, I can tell you my tricks. You know, I don't like to endorse any commercial vendors, but you can pass it around. They can take a piece, try it. You know, I go to Walmart in the frozen section. They have these California vegetables. It has broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, and something else it has. And so I buy all these frozen vegetables. Everywhere I go, there are refrigerators available. I buy them and throw them in there. So I take one out and I cook it in the microwave oven because you can cook it. They are all steam in the bag. Okay? I get my daily vegetables out of that way. I get my beans out of this way, all right? And broccoli counts as dark greens. So I get my beans and greens everywhere I go. It's possible. You just have to use imagination. And what I did was I had a problem. I knew the benefits of, anybody else wants to taste it? I had a problem. I wanted to consume more flaxseed, but it tasted terrible. I couldn't do it. But most people put flaxseed on their cereal. I don't eat cereal for breakfast. So I said, I'm not going to do this. I tried to put it into water and tried to gulp it down. It was just terrible, horrendous, obnoxious, I would say. So I kept thinking, I got to do something creative with it. So I came up with a recipe. Now, it's not my own. I took a recipe from the internet and I adapted it, made it better, in my opinion. So what I did was I take 2 pounds of freshly ground flaxseed. Okay, I didn't warn you, it is slightly spicy. I then added chopped onions, chopped green serrano peppers, red bell peppers, add turmeric, cayenne pepper powder, salt, added, what else do you add? Cilantro, chopped cilantro.
You gotta eat it.
And then I have a half a gallon of water because 2 pounds of, it swells, you know. And I create a slurry of it and it becomes like a mush. And I spread it on a cookie sheet and bake it at 170 degrees for like 18 hours. Those are the chips. I can assure you, there's a heck of a lot easier to chew on them than eating the raw flax, ground flax. Huh? So my conclusion is, use your imagination. If there is a way you can solve the problem, you can solve it. You just have to use your imagination, use creativity. That's the bottom line. Again, I'm not trying to boast, but I'm much older than I look. Did you know that? Anybody wants to guess how old I am? I won't be insulted if you tell me I'm 90 years old. I'm not, but
What's the question?
don't tell me you cheated and looked at the internet because my information is all over the internet.
Your crackers are spicy.
Yes, but you can make it less spicy. Don't use as much serrano peppers or cayenne pepper powder.
Can you explain again what's wrong with bread?
Bread is a processed food, highly processed. You add sugar to it, right? How can you make a bread without sugar or some sweet stuff, either molasses or honey or something has to be added for the yeast to work, right? Okay? And you take flour that's whole wheat, you ground it and you remove the fiber out of it, because how many of you know you can buy flour that has all the fiber in it? You know, they remove the germ, right? When they process wheat, they remove the germ because the wheat flour spoils. So they have to remove the germ. So it's actually a processed flour. You add processed sugar to it. You processed some, other ingredient to it. And then you bake it. So it's basically processed. Am I saying all processed food is bad? I'm not saying that. But it's, don't assume it's a natural product. It's not a natural product. It's a processed food. So if you want to eat bread, choose something that is minimally processed. Like I was telling you at lunchtime, if you're not able to break somebody's skull with the bread, it's not a good bread. You know what I'm talking about? If you cannot break somebody's skull with a bread, loaf of bread, it is not a good bread. The healthy bread, like they make in Germany, it is so heavy, it feels like a rock. You have to use a knife, work for an hour to cut into slices. That's healthy bread because it has lots of fiber. When they have a lot of fiber, it is not soft and spongy like the Wonder Bread. You know what the ratio Wonder Bread is? Carbohydrate fiber ratio, I looked it up. 18 to 1. 18 to 19 grams of carbs, 1 gram of fiber. Did you see the nutritional label on those corn chips they were having for lunch? I'm not a food police. I'm just teaching you. I'm using it as a teaching tool. If you see the nutritional value, it's probably like 32 grams of carbs and 0 grams of fiber, or 1 gram of fiber. You want more fiber. If you want to eat carbs, you got to have more fiber. Any other questions? Once again,
what is a healthy oil to use?
I have a complete lecture on healthy oil. I'll have to try and summarize it in 2 minutes. All oils are made up of fatty acids. There are 3 kinds of fatty acids: saturated, polyunsaturated, and monounsaturated. The unsaturated means instead of having, let me see, I can back up. All carbon atoms have 4 arms: north, south, east, and west. Okay? If I'm standing next to another carbon atom, I hold my hand out and I'm holding the other person's left hand. Okay? So I lost 1 hand. If there's another carbon atom on my left side, I do that with another hand. So I have only 2 arms left. I can hold on to hydrogen atoms. Are you with me? Okay. There's a series of atoms like that. That's basically one of the fatty acids. There's an extra at the end, one end. There's a OH on one end and a CO at the other end. But it basically, OH and O. That's basically fatty acid. Now, instead of holding 1 hand with a neighbor, I had 2 hands, right? Remember, I had 4 hands. Now I'm using 2 hands to hold on to my neighbor. That means I'm left with 1, and the other neighbor I'm holding with 1 hand. So I've lost 3 arms. I have only 1 arm left. I'm holding on to 1 hydrogen. That means I have 1 less hydrogen atom that I can hold on to. I could have held on to 2 hydrogen atoms, but I'm not. I'm only on to 1. That's called unsaturated. That means I'm not fully saturated with hydrogen atoms. If I have only 1 of those, it's called the double bond. If you have 1 of those double bonds, that's called unsaturated. Okay? Now, the hydrogen atom that is alone can be pointing north or south, right? There are four arms. I'm holding 2 to hold on to the 1 person, 1 to the other one. I've got normally 1 either on top or bottom. If the neighboring atom has to have, because he's got the double bond, that he has to do the same. So if the 2 atoms have both pointing in the north direction, that's called cis fat. If 1 is pointing north and 1 is pointing south, that's called trans fat. That's deadly. You don't want the trans fat. You want both the hydrogen atoms pointing in the same direction, either both on the north or both in the south. Okay? So now you know all about cis and trans fats. Now, I already told you, if you have 1 of these double bonds with the 2 hydrogen atoms pointing in the same direction, that's called monounsaturated fatty acid. If you have more than 1 of these, like there's 1 here and then another few minutes later, there's a few seconds later, there's another one with a double bond, that will be called polyunsaturated. Are you with me? Now, final point. We number the carbon atoms in the fatty acid 1 to infinity. Okay, because some of them will have 18 carbons, some of them will have 9, etc. So the last carbon atom, what is the last alphabet in the Greek, last letter in the Greek alphabet? Greek alphabet, what's the first one? Alpha and omega, right? The omega, so the last carbon atom, regardless of the number, whether it's 18 or 21, it doesn't matter. We call it the omega carbon atom. If the double bond is located 3 from the top, the last one, that's called omega minus 3. All right? People are tired of saying omega minus 3, so they call it omega 3. Now you know where omega 3 comes from. If that double bond is located 6 carbons from the end, that's called omega minus 6. And people are tired of saying minus 6, they call omega 6. Okay? Now you know all you need to know about polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and saturated. Saturated acid, fatty acid, will turn quickly into cholesterol. Coconut oil and butter, for example, they don't have cholesterol, but they turn into cholesterol very quickly because they're already saturated. All the hydrogen atoms are occupied, places are occupied. So you want the oil that has almost no saturated and very low polyunsaturated, because polyunsaturated is not the best. That's not as healthy as monounsaturated. You want monounsaturated. So the oil that is the best oil in the world is kind of expensive. It's hard to find. It's called algae oil. Only one company was making it, and then after a year or two, they quit making it, and I heard they put it back in production. So you go for algae oil, you can look it up on the internet, you'll find it. It's expensive. That is the most effective, the best oil in the world, because it has maximum amount of monounsaturated, almost no saturated. Like I think like out of one serving, it had 13 grams of monounsaturated, 0.5 grams of unsaturated, and 1 gram of polyunsaturated. Okay, that's what you want. All mono, very little poly, and no saturated. So that's what I would recommend. Now, I always tell you when I follow the bad news with the good news, there is another oil that is almost as good. That is called the high oleic acid sunflower oil. Not any sunflower oil. It has to be high oleic acid sunflower oil. It's not available in the local grocery stores. I ordered it online. It cost me about a gallon, $35 a gallon. It's not cheap. But that's what I use for cooking for my guests every Saturday. Because you know what I believe? My guests deserve the best. You can, tell them all about health and then I cheat on them by using some not unhealthy oil, right? Not so healthy oil. So that's my conclusion. If you want really healthy oil, you go for the algae oil or the high oleic acid sunflower oil. Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for all this information. It's really good. Can't you make your alkaline water just by adding lemon to regular water?
No, lemon juice will make it acidic because lemon juice is citric acid. Yes, you can make alkaline water on your own. I can tell you how to do it. You take a quart of steam distilled water and add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda from your kitchen. I repeat that. 1 quart of steam distilled water or even reverse osmosis water, 1 quart, and add 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda from your kitchen. Shake it up and drink it. That's alkaline water, pH of 9.5. Now you will say, why don't I do it? Because I hate the taste of the baking soda and water. This one has no real taste. I don't taste the baking soda because they actually add potassium bicarbonate, calcium chloride, and magnesium chloride. And by the time they get done with it, it tastes awesome. It tastes very, very good. But you have to pay for it. Go ahead.
Just the question was, what's the name of that water?
Sam's Club.
Okay.
It's like $10 for 18 bottles. Most of them charge a lot higher. Any other questions? Once again, if you want to have more information, you can listen to my weekly show. I do a weekly show every Monday at 5 o'clock on this radio station called KEQQ FM 88.3 in Grand Fork, but you can't hear it in Three River Falls. You'll have to listen to it online. Okay, and if you want more information, you can email me. You can send a request to me for my monthly newsletter. I stopped producing the monthly newsletter after the COVID, but I haven't had a chance to think about restarting it yet. But I have about 60 of them. You can have them right now. Go ahead.
Some people were just wondering how old you are.
How old do you think I am?
As old as you feel.
I'm sorry?
As old as you feel.
I don't feel old. I get up at 6:30 in the morning. I get on the treadmill for an hour. I eat a plant-based breakfast. I go to my office, work through, sometime most of the time I work through lunch. And I get, have you heard the word lupper? You know what a lupper is? You don't know what a lupper is? Okay, you got it. Okay, so I usually have a lupper about 4 o'clock, 4:30. And then I catch up with my personal work. I actually give about 70 concerts a year. One concert every Friday night, and then I do additional concerts. So I do 70 concerts, musical concerts a year. In addition, I travel to, like this Sunday, I leave Grand Forks at 4 o'clock. I drive 4 hours to a small town called Dawson, Minnesota. I see about 10 to 15 patients in Dawson Monday. Then I go from Dawson Monday evening to drive 30 miles to Granite Falls. I stay overnight, and I'm doing about 3 or 4 procedures there, pacemakers, Tuesday morning. And then Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to see about 4 or 5 patients. Then about 4 o'clock, I drive back to Dawson, do a concert at 6 o'clock at Dawson. Then I drive back to Granite Falls, stay Tuesday night, I work all day. Wednesday, I have about 20 patients to see Wednesday. Wednesday evening, I drive from Granite Falls to Little Falls, Minnesota, about 160 miles. And then I do procedures there. I've got 2 procedures to do, pacemakers, Thursday. I do that. Then I drive from Thursday evening, I drive all the way from there back to Watertown, South Dakota. And then Friday morning, I have about 3 or 4 procedures to do there, pacemakers. I leave just in time to drive back to Grand Forks to do the concert at 8 o'clock Friday night. That's my next week's schedule. So I keep busy, but I enjoy what I do. You know, I could retire today and not look back because I think this is my 41st year in practice. So it's not like I need the money, but I enjoy doing this. I enjoy teaching people. I enjoy helping people. And that's why I do this. Otherwise, I could retire tomorrow and not to look back.
What's your go-to breakfast?
Go-to breakfast is high fiber tortilla, soft tortilla. Actually, I can make my own, but I don't have the time because of my schedule. So I found one in Sam's Club and Walmart. It's called Ole Keto flatbread. It has one flatbread has 40% of the fiber required for the day. If you have 2 of them, you get 80% of your fiber for the day. And remember, I have a bowl of vegetables. That's another. So I get my fiber. You need about 30 grams of fiber a day. That's the way that's my go-to breakfast. Sometimes I do the tortilla with some unsweetened almond butter. That's available in Sam's Club. I use that, make it to roll up. That's my quick breakfast. Sometimes I have eaten oatmeal, but the best oatmeal is the steel cut oats, not the quick oats. It's not, it's okay, but it's not the best. You want to do that, you can do that. I don't like cereals for breakfast. I like something different, but so that's the way I raised. Sometimes I have the flatbread with some tomato chutney. I made some Indian style spicy tomato chutney. A lady gave me about 20 pounds of tomatoes day before yesterday, 4 days ago. I cooked them for like 3 hours. The 20 pounds became like 2 pounds. It's intense flavor. And I use that to smear on my tortilla. That's another thing I do. Listen, use your imagination. I have recipes. By the way, if you email me, I can send you recipes we developed. I've developed a recipe for dessert using, you'll have to contact me. I'll send you the recipes. I have all kinds of desserts as well as main dish. I have a recipe for baby lima beans. How many of you try baby lima beans? Frozen braised baby lima beans. It takes only 5 minutes to make it. See, I always look for ways which the cooking time is short and still I get the results. It takes only 5 minutes to make that. And it's absolutely delicious. I have not seen anybody, I've not come across anybody in the United States in the last 40 years that did not like it. In fact, I'll tell you an interesting story for another 5 minutes. This, our church organist in Grand Forks, we invited her to our lunch for our home for lunch Sabbath. And she came there and stood there and we putting the food on the table. She made some faces and I said, Leslie, what's going on? He says, I see lima beans. I hate lima beans. Really? I said, okay, here's the deal. I took a napkin, paper napkin. I said, Leslie, here's a napkin. You take one bean, just one bean, put it in your mouth. If you don't like it, spit it out. I'll never ask you to eat it again. Do I have to? I said, no, you don't have to, but I strongly recommend you try it. She very hesitated, took one bean, put it in my mouth. All of a sudden, her eyes lit up. He said, wow, this is good. It's how you prepare. You got to use creativity and imagination. I can tell you, you can make vegetable product taste absolutely fantastic if you just use some creativity. That's the moral of the story. You can make it. Listen, let me tell you a story. 23 years ago, I don't look like a big person, do I? Physically, okay? I weigh only about 135 pounds. 23 years ago, you know how big a porterhouse steak is? How many of you know how big a porterhouse steak is? Porterhouse. 33 ounces. 33 ounces. I ate the porterhouse all by myself. So don't tell me, Dr. Chelliah, you're telling us not to eat meat because you must not like meat. I love meat. I like beef. I like chicken. I like fish. Why did I give it up? Science. The more I read, the more I realized. So if you told me that today you can give me a piece of steak that has no cholesterol, no IGF-1, nothing else, I'd eat it gladly, but I know there's no such thing. So I gave it up because it's not healthy for me. So don't tell me that I am telling you to become a plant-based consumer because I hate meat. That's not true. I love meat. Meat doesn't like me. It's not good for me. Any other questions? I hope this was of some use to you, and hopefully you'll... Anyway, if anybody's interested in my spicy flax chips, email me, I'll send you the recipe. In fact, somebody has been telling me I have to, have somebody manufacture this and sell it commercially, and I said, I'm interested in teaching people how to do it, but any other questions? Thank you for coming. Can we close with a word of prayer? Our Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for all your blessings. Lord, we thank you that you've given us the knowledge to learn from you, the great healer. Help us to improve our health by changing our lifestyle. Give us the determination and the desire to do this for ourselves, that we may live long and help others, because we ask in Jesus' worthy name. Amen.